Hello, hello. My name is Christina Carpenter. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for joining me. I am coming to you live this evening to talk about audio. Well, actually, biographies. Let's talk about biographies today. So, we're gonna talk about it. So, what are your favorite biographies? Who's your favorite person? Do you have a favorite person that you read their book, you love their life? A lot of people are really exploring Michael Jackson again because of the big movie that just came out. And so you could go back and look at, his past, his history. And then we have books like when the Prince wrote his book in the UK. I believe it's called Spare by Harry. Harry, what's his name? Let me see. But anyway, biographies are everywhere. I like the one that just came out by Kiki Palmer. It's called Master of Me. I read that book. It's so good. Just basically, whoever's your favorite person, you read their book, you like their stuff, and you love their life. And you could also write your own biography, whatever it may be. So I'm encouraging you to work on a biography. So let's talk about biographies and autobiographies and memoirs. Actually, we'll talk about memoirs, actually. We're talking about memoirs. We're talking about writing your story and sharing it. Whatever your life story is, it's important, it's key. And so let's talk about writing your story. So how do we write our story? First, to write our story, we need to know what is the theme throughout our life. What is the through line? What is the underlying current of everything that you've gone through? What is the final destination to your story? And it could be multiple different things. And depending on where you want to focus, that's the positioning of your book. So in Kiki Palmer's book, she's focusing on explaining herself, setting the record straight. And also, her book is more about encouraging people who look up to her, how she got to where she is, and how she navigates the landscape of people who have tried to think they had control over her career. And basically, her book is about she has control over her own career, she has control over her own story, her own life, and that you are the master of yourself. And excuse the noise if you hear anything. You are the master of yourself, and you are the master of your career, your life trajectory. And that's what Kiki Palmer's book is all about. And I love Kiki Palmer. I love her, her acting, her personality is very lively. And so when we talk about our memoirs, when we write our memoirs, we're writing about ourselves, we're writing about our personality, our past, our present, and ultimately where we're going in life, what's our mission, our purpose. And so when you're writing, I want to encourage you to start journaling what you want your memoir to be about early, thinking about what is the themes in my life. What are the areas that I am most proud of? What are the areas I am a little bit more ashamed of? And how do you piece it all together so that it's a tapestry of a beautiful story that people can actually glean some wisdom from, knowledge from? I have a friend who just wrote her book, and she's talking about retirement and how she retired. And she just retired from her job, and this is her proud moment. And so, what you're doing when you write your book is you could start from that proud moment and make that the overarching climax of your book. I had listened to a story of a young lady who had found out she had a illness that she didn't know she had, and then she learned about it because she had climbed a mountain. And so her story is very unique because she didn't learn about it until she climbed this very treacherous mountain. And so she has two stories: the story of climbing a mountain and the story of dealing with an illness she didn't even know she had all this time, and how she came through it and how she's an advocate for this illness. And so she learned about herself in the process of climbing a mountain. And so all of these things, like little areas of your life, can teach you about yourself and can help you teach others. So let's start off with overcoming adversity. That's one theme that you could talk about. Overcoming adversity is overcoming a life situation that was difficult for you. It could be divorce, could be death, grief, um, anything that is really challenging in your life. And you can write about your resilience and your strength. The next theme that you could talk about is you finding your identity. This could be a memoir of self discovery and acceptance. This could be a memoir of your identity, who you're becoming, who you were and who you are now, like how you transition from one stage to another, becoming more mature, wiser, or whatever the case may be. Then another dynamic you could write about is love, loss, forgiveness, in families. You could talk about family dynamics. I love books that talk about adoptions. I love books that talk about parenthood. I think it's very interesting to read about other people's experiences in those situations. And so you could write about family. You could delve into the complexity of family. There's lots of books that could be controversial about family, such as Educated was one of them. This woman wrote about her upbringing where she was, like, I believe in the rural area, and her parents didn't believe in going to the doctor, so they solved everything at home, even when it was really bad and they needed to go to a doctor. And that was her life dynamic. She didn't realize that something was wrong until later on, that she was living this life that wasn't really exactly normal. Her family didn't trust the medical system. So that's her life story. And her family. And so you could talk about your family dynamics, what's different in your family from other families, and what you experience. Such as some people write about being in a cult or being raised in a family that was narcissistic. Like, these are different life problems that you learn to maybe overcome, come through. Maybe your family had someone that was addicted to drugs or maybe drinking or something, and then you got out of that situation, and how do you overcome it? What sources of inspiration helped you to get through that situation? Like, you could talk about that kind of family dynamic. Another thing you could talk about is you could talk about travel. You could talk about exploring the world. You could talk about backpacking across Europe or volunteering in another country. You could talk about the dynamics of learning new cultures, learning new languages. You could learn about the lessons that you learned while you were immersing yourself in another culture. So that's another area you could talk about. You could also talk about mental health. This is another through line that you could talk about: healing and hope. You could talk about the struggles of your mental health. You could talk about depression, anxiety, addiction, and then talk about how you found light and hope through that situation and destigmatize mental illness. Talk about healing and finding hope. Another area that many people do memoirs about is their career. A lot of actors do memoirs about their career, such as Keke Palmer. She did a memoir about her career, and it's awesome. All right, and then let's see. Hold on one second. All right, so another, yeah, so we're going to talk about careers. And a lot of actors, they talk about their career, they talk about their life, circumstances in that career. It could be beauty industry, it could be acting, it could be dance industry. A lot of people write about those kinds of things, and especially if they're celebrities or they're famous or anything like that, they usually write about those things. If you have any sort of achievement in your career, that's a great time to start writing a memoir about it, because then you could tell how you got to where you are in your life and how you came through. A lot of people love to learn about how people got from one place to the next in their career. All right, next thing we're going to talk about is you could do a memoir about friendship, about community. You could do a memoir about the community projects that you've been involved in, about the friendships that you created. Like, you could do like anything that talks about human connection and the support in a community is a really good topic that you could use as a through line for your book. All right, and then another area that you could possibly do is love and relationships. You could do a memoir about maybe your marriage and your coming through a long marriage. Maybe you were married for many, many years. Like I've met people that have been married for 40 years, 50 years. A lot of people admire that. So you could talk about the ups and downs of a long life of marriage with one person. It's very interesting to know about other people's marriage life, how they got through it. Maybe the compromises you have to make, maybe the arguments. Maybe you don't want to go into all of those things, but if you were successful in your life with a good, happy marriage, you could share the happy moments, the traveling, maybe the hacks or whatever that you did to survive and stay in a happy, healthy marriage. You could talk about the ups and downs. You could talk about reflections on that marriage. One of the books I read recently is called The Emotionally Healthy Woman. It's by Jerry Scazzaro. She's a pastor's wife. She actually talks about her marriage to a pastor and what it was like being a pastor's wife. And I thought it was so intriguing to read about the pastor's wife and what it was like behind the scenes for her, especially coming up with children and having a pastor who was very influential, very busy in his ministry. There's a little bit of noise. Okay. All right. Another area that you could discuss is cultural heritage. If you come from a culture that you are very proud of and you want to talk about it, this is a perfect time to do that. If you have a lot of culture to talk about, whether it's where you come from, how you got to the US, or how you traveled from one country to another, you could talk about your traditions, your customs that you pass down from generation to generation. This is all a perfect story that could be told through memoir. All you have to do is ask yourself the questions to elicit the responses to talk about those things, and you could create chapters and chapters about your culture, the food. Maybe you could do a cookbook about the foods in your culture. If you're from a culture that people don't normally know the recipes of how to cook certain foods in your culture, you could make a cookbook about it. Or you could talk about the customs that you had during the year, whether it's different things you want to talk about as your custom in your culture. Talking about your roots is preserving your culture. And I think that's a meaningful project to talk about your heritage and traditions and your identity and your culture. Another great topic for a memoir is aging, wisdom in aging, and the reflection that you have looking back on your past and and the wisdom that you've gained through your reflections. There's a book I just bought recently, and the daughter, she wrote the book for her father. And what she did was she asked him a lot of questions about his past work in theater. He worked in theater with a lot of different prominent theater companies and actors, and she was able to get so much information from him that she was able to write his book for him. And I thought that was beautiful that she wrote the book for her dad. Her dad was up in age, I think 60, well, probably like 70 or 80. And she wanted to keep his stories because he always told good stories. And she wanted to put it in a book. And so she did it. And she wrote this book about his time working in theater and Broadway in New York City and how he was from the Bronx. And it's a really good book. I got it at the Broadway Museum. And so this man, he worked on Broadway with a lot of different people, and he had a lot of stories to tell. And it's so good when you can encapsulate those stories and package it up and be able to share it with people and in your family for generations to come. And it will always be an heirloom. And that's the cool thing about memoirs. Memoirs can be passed down to share wisdom and stories. It's a legacy project. And so if you were wanting to write a book about your past memories, I would say go for it, do it, and start right away. And that's all for now. I want to see if I could get my other, let me get my light because I feel like I'm a little in the dark here. I'm going to go over some questions you could ask. So that's the next thing I'm going to do really quickly. And let's get to it. I know it's kind of late in the game to be putting on light. All right, so let's go over some questions for journaling for your memoir. If you're writing a memoir, I have some questions to think about to start working on your memoir questions. So, first of all, let's just go down memory lane and think about pivotal moments in your life that shaped who you are today. Write about emotions, thoughts, lessons learned during that time. Next, take a trip down memory lane and write about your childhood. What were your dreams, your fears, and your struggles? How did they influence your present self? Next, share a story about a relationship that had a profound impact on your life. What did you learn about yourself through that connection? Next, write about mistakes that you had to overcome. How did you grow from it? And what did it teach you about yourself? Next, reflect on a time when you had to make a difficult decision. What factors did you consider and how did it shape your life? Next question. Share a story about a challenge or obstacle you faced and how you overcame it. What strengths and weaknesses did you discover about yourself in the process? And number 7, write about a significant event or experience that changed your perspective on life. How did it alter your beliefs and how did it alter your values? And that is what I'm going to leave you with now for our office hours, because I want to help you to write well for your memoir, getting all your ideas out on the page, journaling, documenting your story as much as possible so that you can create a book that you enjoy and you love. And that's all for now. I will be leaving that with you. I hope you enjoyed these office hours. I will come back with another office hour time later and do some more writing discussion, things that you could talk about to write your book.